Hi, everyone, and welcome back to What They Don't Say. Today, we are collaborating with Angelique, who is the host of the podcast called Let's Talk About It. Her podcast covers topics about gender-based violence, dating after sexual assault, and stories from herself and other survivors. We actually did an episode with Angelique back in February on her podcast, which, of course, we'll link in the show notes. But today, Angelique is here to shed some light on abusive relationships, misconceptions about sexual assault with the same-sex partner, and different reporting processes. Let's get into it.
Hello.
Hi, Angelique.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah. Even on our episode, I sing the hellos, so I have to keep the trend going here.
No, it's literally like we began the year with your podcast, and now we're closing out the year on our podcast.
Full circle or what?
Yeah, full circle. Here we are. We're gonna start out with a big bang. I know that it's very common for someone to be assaulted and abused more than once throughout their life. And unfortunately, this has been the case for you. So could you just start off this episode by giving me and my audience a brief history of the sexual assault and abuse that you've experienced? I know we only have like an hour and a half today, so I know that you have a lot.
Good.
But
yeah, so my experiences with domestic violence sexual assault started when I was 14, and I was dating a man, which is weird because now everybody who knows me knows I'm pretty much a lesbian. But I was dating a man, and we were both 14, and we both didn't know any better. But he was physically abusive. We didn't really do anything sexually because, again, the part where I said we were 14.
Right.
But I remember he would admit it so much so that he would talk about it even to my family, and my family would validate him. And
he was abusing you?
Yeah, he would I remember my grandma, because I lived with my grandma at the time, she would confront him whenever he was at the house or whatever, and be like, she said that you pushed her, why would you do that? Or she said that you did this, but what happened? And he would say well, I told her to leave me alone or she wouldn't walk away, or I told her that she shouldn't have said that, she said it anyway. And my grandma would be like, well, yeah, you should have left him alone, or you shouldn't have said that. And I'm like, oh, this is super, makes me feel so good and nice about myself. That's awesome. So then finally, he ended up transferring schools. I have no idea what he's doing with his life now. Haven't heard from him since. And then when I was 16, thank God, when I was 16, I dated another guy, which, again, weird because I'm pretty much a lesbian.
I mean, this is how it usually goes. It's you date men and then you're like, what was I anybody that I know who's lesbian now is yeah, I don't know what was going on there.
I don't either. I literally don't. But I dated another guy when I was 16, and that was my first experience with sexual assault. And I remember I didn't really process it at first. It happened in October, and then I remember not I got in trouble because he was at my house in the first place and he wasn't supposed to be. So I remember not having my phone or whatever, because that was my family's tactic every time I got in trouble, keep my phone away, which is kind of fair, because that was kind of every child's experience of you didn't have your phone whenever you got in trouble. But that was what was happening to me at the time, and I really couldn't process what was happening because I was too busy trying to figure out my own life with the fact that I just have no, I literally would go to school and come home. And then I'd have no access to social media or anything like that because I was home, and I didn't have, so that was my bigger issue than figuring out what was going on there. And then I finally figured out what happened in December of, this was 2020, so I was 16 at the time. And I remember processing it, I told my aunt about it first, and she was like, okay, do you need me to take you to the doctor? Do you need me to do we need to go get an STD screening? What are the vibes that we're trying to feel right now? And I was like, I just want him to leave me alone. He just kept texting me, and I already confronted him for it, and he kept going, kept bothering me. I tried blocking him. He'd figure something out. So I just wanted him to leave me alone. And I told her that. So we ended up doing the whole restraining order process, blah, blah, blah. But we also, I reported him to the police because I didn't really know.
Sorry. You just go restraining order, blah, blah, blah.
Casual. Because at this point, this, at the time, this was literally my second time. Because my first boyfriend, I got one on him. And this is the second one. And then, as you know, the story continues with those. So I'm like, you know what? It's a part of my life now. Me and restraining orders get along pretty well, I guess. But at the time, I didn't really know how to get one, so I went to the police first and reported him first. And I remember the police coming to my house and they did their quote unquote investigation, and obviously their investigation was him saying he didn't do it and then believing him. And I remember like the police officer, he was like, if I were to hit you right now, would you still be friends with me? And I was like,
Oh my
no.
gosh.
And he was like, so how do you expect us to believe that he assaulted you and you still stayed with him afterwards? And I was like,
I
I don't even know how to like begin to answer that dumb question, but okay.
Yeah, this is like abuse 101. Like
Literally.
literally abuse 101. And you didn't like a lot of people think, that this is all like revenge. Oh, you're coming forward for revenge. But literally,
Yeah.
like you were saying, you just wanted to be okay. Like you just wanted to get away from him.
Yeah.
And that is the literally the basics of abuse is like not knowing how to get out, but wanting to get out. And I don't understand why it's such a complicated thing for people to understand. And maybe it's because they haven't been through it, but I feel that there are enough resources these days where the people who are in charge of potentially,
Hmm.
granting the restraining order or pushing a case forward, they don't understand the basics like that.
Yeah, and I feel like that was like probably one of the biggest issues in that situation because it was like you're literally your entire profession is around like understanding exactly why I stayed with him in that situation. So the fact that we're asking me this question, I'm baffled. But moving forward, I just kind of like went about my. I ended up transferring schools in the situation because he like I exposed him on social media, and then like it. I wasn't getting any backlash from it. Like I was, of course, but like I mean, in school, in person, like
Mhm.
nobody was coming up to me or like saying anything to me. Like I was fine. It was just a matter of like there were times where like we would have class together, or like
Right.
we would like he would have the same teacher as I would, so we would be in the same like office hours, stuff like that. So like I was like, you know what, I don't want to freaking do this anymore, bye. And I left. I transferred schools, and then 3 years later I ended up moving to from New York City, which is where I was living when all this was happening, to where I live now, which is in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I started dating my first woman, which is we finally embraced the fact that I was gay.
And you
And
like knew deep
oh
down.
yeah, I this whole
Okay.
time I like swore. I like it's funny because I came out to my old like my grandma who's still here, like with us. Um, I came out to her when I was like 15 or 16, and she was like, "Yeah, I knew this already." And I was like, "Okay, it would have been nice to catch me up on that." Like,
Could you have let me know that you
yeah,
knew
right. I was like,
so that
"What
I
the
could
hell?"
know?
Literally, I dated my first woman when I was 19, and it didn't really go great at all, to say the least. And like there was a lot of things that like I didn't even know were possible, like, and not say I didn't know they were possible, but like I didn't know where it was happening in the moment, if that makes sense. Like when it was happening, it was kind of like, oh, I didn't like this. I don't know how to feel about this. What's going on here? And then when I stepped out of it and took some time to heal and like went to therapy and all that, I was like, what just happened was sexual assault. What just
Right.
happened was domestic violence. But I didn't think
Mhm.
about that because to me it was always like that's something that happens in a heterosexual relationship, like a man and a woman. And then for it to happen with two women, it was kind of like, oh, okay, like that's I'm putting the pieces together now. I'm processing
Right.
what just happened. And that was like definitely a power dynamic because of the fact that she was not only was she older than me, because I don't think as we might have addressed, I I don't think age is what really matters when you have an age gap in a relationship. I think it's the power dynamic, like we talked about too.
Right.
And she had been at the school for 4 or 5, almost 5 years at this point. I had just got to that school for only a semester. So by the time we were doing like the reporting processes and like we were doing the breakups and we were doing this and that, everything that I was doing, I was always one step behind her. Like she
Right.
was always like already there, already trying to make everybody like believe her, already trying to make it look like, I was the crazy one and like try to set herself up so that when I did start doing things, people were like, "Oh yeah, like I already heard this from her." Like she's
Right.
just, you're being crazy as they would say because
Right.
she did what she did, whatever.
Which is
And
how the manipulation goes. Like it's a grooming process. It's these people, perpetrators are highly manipulative. They're very intelligent. A lot of times emotionally intelligent. They just seem to like use their powers for bad.
mhm.
And I think people get tripped up because they think it's black and white. But as you experienced, you thought it was only a man that could harm a woman. Wrong. A woman can also harm a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah. And like that was mostly my experiences with like relationship stuff. I've had situations where like in the summer of 2020, was 2021, so the summer 2021, when like my best friend's uncle was like touching me while I was sleeping, or I've had like coworkers like try to force me to touch them, stuff like that. So like my extensive history with domestic violence, sexual assault goes pretty deep, and I talk about it pretty often because I just feel like they take so much from you, they take a part of you, they like feel like your body is theirs when it's not, doesn't work that way.
Right.
And I think another thing is like a lot of us live in silence for so long, whether it's because like we're processing it or because like we don't understand what's happening or just because like we're not ready to talk about what the case is. So when I finally was like, you know what, I'm ready to talk about it, I wasn't going to stop. Like I wasn't going to be like, I'm not going to do it anymore because she's asking me not to, or because she doesn't want me to. I was going to stop talking about it because I wanted to stop talking about it.
The
And because that
floodgates
was,
were open, and
yeah,
you were the only one who had the key to close them.
exactly. And that's why I stopped talking about it. Because like I used to like post about her all the time and talk about it all the time. And then eventually I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
Boom. Didn't do it. I
Yeah.
barely talk about her on social media anymore. And that was literally just because I didn't want to do it. It was me. Because
Mhm.
I feel like if they take so much and they do so much that once they're like completely done and like out of my life, they're they no longer have the power of my voice.
Right. Right.
Period.
Um, period. Walk me through what it was like once you started to realize that this was an unhealthy, abusive relationship, and what sort of reporting process did you go through after that?
So I think especially with my most recent like um public breakup, I would say, like with what happened with me and Britt, I started processing it while we were still together. And I
Mm.
started like little things would happen and I would be like, either this isn't normal or I'm not okay with this or I don't like feeling like this, whatever the case was. And I didn't really understand like what was happening. Like I knew I didn't like it. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't really have the means to take action because of it. And I remember like wanting to break up with her. There were several times that like I wanted to like finally make that move and be like, I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. I can't feel like this. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And staying with her because again, that power dynamic. I felt like, if I were to leave her, how would I do this? How would I get here? How would I like all these different things that she was
Right.
like doing for me that if I didn't have her in my life, I was completely lost of like what was I gonna do? And I knew like it would turn me around 100 like 180.
Right.
And I
Because
remember
she was
when
also like controlling like financial sides of you, and
yeah,
right.
like I remember, especially when we were together, she was the breadwinner, and I 100% admit that. Like, I
Mhm.
was working, like, I was doing what I had to do, but all of my money, because I don't live with my parents, I don't have that, like, well off lifestyle, where, like,
Right.
all of my money was going straight towards my tuition, straight towards, like, my bills I had to pay for that, like, that type of stuff, in order for me to go to school in the first place. Whereas, like, with her, she was getting all her money from her parents. So, like, to me, buying a meal from, like, Chick-fil-A or whatever was like a lot of money. Like that $20 that would go for that was a
It-
lot. But for her, that was like pocket change. That was nothing.
mm.
So like for me to not have like I started to depend on her to figure out how I was gonna like get food because we would always eat together, so I'd figure out how I'm gonna get food. Or like we would like she drove, I didn't, so she would take me places if I needed to go somewhere. Stuff like that where like I knew if I didn't have her in my life anymore, I would have no access to like a lot of those things that I genuinely needed.
Mm.
So I remember like she finally breaks up with me and I wrote her a letter. Like I asked her if we could talk. She kept saying no. So I was like, you know what? Fine, I'm gonna respect your wishes. I'm not gonna push it anymore. And I wrote her a letter. And I was like, I remember when I told her that like, cause I had dropped off her stuff and the letter was in her stuff. And I told her I had like, I think I emailed her. I
Mm.
emailed her and it basically said like, I left you a letter in there. If you want to read it, read it. If you don't, don't. I said what I wanted to say. That's how I feel. And one of the first sentences in that letter, this was the day after we broke up too. One of the first sentences is me saying, thank you. I was like, I know I didn't have the strength to do what I needed you to do, and you did it, which was break up with me. And I remember like the weeks following, I was very like emotional. I was very like, this was like probably part of where I hit rock bottom. Like rock bottom came a little bit harder after this, but
Mm.
this was the beginning, and I was like really just unwell. And I remember like seeing her talk to somebody. Like they were like it was just her and like a professor of some sort in like a room, and I was scared that she was reporting me. Not that like I
Mm.
was doing anything like illegal or inappropriate, but it was just the fact that like I can't be in my headspace in the moment. It was like I can't be kicked out of school. So
Right.
like
You feel like I need this.
although I was feeling suicidal and although I was like, as bad as I was, I couldn't leave. Like I couldn't, talk to my family. I couldn't like go to like a mental health facility. I couldn't do that because I was just not. That would have been so much worse for me that I wasn't. No.
Mm.
So for her to be like doing that, I was so scared that's what she was doing. I remember running to my therapist and like just telling her like everything, and her basically saying that like that's not why Britt was talking to the person, and it had nothing to do with that specifically. It had to do with like just the fact that Britt felt like I was quote unquote suffocating her, and what can she do to get away from me? And I was like, that's an interesting way to put it, but okay. um and I remember my therapist, she had asked, she was like, you keep saying that your relationship with her was toxic, but what about it was so toxic? And I remember telling her, like, well, there was this one time where, like, I was playing with her ear and she like grabbed my wrist. There was another time where like she had like choked me, and I really can't even remember what exactly happened in the choking situation.
Okay.
Um, and there was like I was telling her like other situations where like there was like a time where like I got mad at her and I walked away from her and she would follow me and she wouldn't like leave me alone until eventually like I went back to the bedroom and like we somehow ended up having sex. And I never said okay, I never consented
Right.
to that. And my therapist was like, that wasn't toxic, that was abusive. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
oh.
I hate when the therapist calls you out like that.
No, my therapist used to clack my teeth so bad. Um
Did you say
and
clap your cheeks?
no,
Is that what you said?
I said clack my teeth.
I'm like, wait, yeah. That's kind of a funny one though. Like,
Oh my god. No.
I'm so sorry. Anyways.
But I remember like after I had that conversation, I like ran back to my like the same professor that Britt was just talking to, I went to go talk to. And
Mm,
I was like finally like Britt left. She ended up seeing me and like 5 minutes later she leaves. And I like broke down and just told the professor like what was going on, how I was feeling. And I remember like kind of solidifying what I had already heard Britt was saying, because the professor was like, I'm getting two different sides from the two of you. Like, I'm getting
mm,
completely different stories, and I don't know, like, I don't know how to help either one of you because I'm hearing two different things. And I was like, that kind of solidified exactly what I was told that she was doing and she was trying to say. And so I think that same night I confronted her for what she did. I confronted her for the fact that I was like, I, this is what I just, was told when I was in therapy. And now I feel
mm,
like I just want to like address it because I'm confused. And I remember
mm.
she admitted it. Like she said like that she did grab my wrist, but she had excuses for every single thing she did. Like she would say like, I grabbed your wrist because you wouldn't like stop touching my ear. And I was like, I don't think the two things equate, but hey,
Mhm.
okay, sure. Less than 24 hours later, I got the school had issued like a no contact order. I like remember getting it and just reading it and being like, where is this coming from? Because she didn't mention like anything along those lines. Like along
Mm,
like this entire time, like she hadn't like said like that she was thinking about that she was talking about it, that it had like gotten that far. Like I just knew that like every time her and I broke up, because we broke up at least once a month. Every time her
mm,
and I broke up, she had always tried to like, kind of keep a distance. Not that she didn't want to like be around me, but that was how she like healed from things, was doing it on her
mm,
own. So like to me it wasn't like I wasn't aware that like it was to that extent, if that made sense. Like to my understanding, she wanted her own alone time because she wanted to heal how she wanted to heal, not that she felt like I was controlling her, I was like stalking her, whatever. That was a
right.
whole other situation. I was like, I never okay. And then that was when I was kind of like, I don't want her side of the story, I guess, to be the thing that people believe. Because I also remember when I confronted her for it, I told her that I had told the professor, that I had said like to the professor what had happened.
Right.
And she was the one who told me like the professor's a mandated reporter.
Mm,
So to my knowledge at the time as well, it didn't say on the no contact order like who initiated it. I don't know how these things work. So I didn't at the
mm,
time, I didn't, now I do. It didn't say who initiated it. It didn't say like anything of that sort. So to me, I was just kind of like, I was assuming mandated reporter. I just talked about the abuse. That's probably where it's coming from. I
right.
didn't process like it didn't process to me that she was the one who did it until I found out like 2.5 months later.
Okay.
And so like I was, on the one hand I was like, I don't want, her side to be like all the people know. I want to be
Okay.
able to like hear, I want people to know how I feel and what I experience, put it that way.
Right. What you had to go through.
Yeah. And I remember like going to the Title IX office and just being like, this is what I've gotten so far. Mind you, this was 24 hours after I even gotten as far as I got. So like
Right.
I like the part of the version of the story that they got then versus like what I talk about now is entirely two different things, and it
Right.
has nothing to do with like me lying or anything like that. It has to do with the fact that like at the time I was so like, what the hell? Like I was so
Mm,
traumatized and so like it was so fresh that like I didn't have time to step. I was still actively involved in the situation. I didn't have time to step out of it and process what happened. Now I'm out of it, that I'm able to be like, this is exactly what happened, and put it all together into one little like bowl and hand it over. Right. So I went over there and I talked about that then, and I just remember like her telling me like, okay, like we'll figure out, like, here's the form if you want to report it, fill out the form. There's 2 different versions of the process, and you can go from there. And I remember in the beginning, I really didn't want Britt to get in trouble. Like, it was never about getting Britt in trouble. It was never about like her getting suspended or expelled or like wanting any type of revenge, which, like, to me, if you want that, that's so okay too. Like, if your goal in reporting your person is so they, like, some type of revenge, girl, power to you, because I'm all for that. It just wasn't what I was doing it for. And so like I just wanted her to learn from what she did. And I knew that like if I were to try to do a process and if there was a possibility of her being suspended, anything like that, and she could be taken out of like her dream program, that would do the opposite of teaching her that what she did was something like wrong. That would just simply hurt her and simply like harm her even more. And I'm not gonna be a hurt person who hurts people. And so I remember just like filling out the form, but I asked for an informal process, and all I wanted was to simply like have her go to like some type of counseling, anger management, you know, like just get yourself together. That's the only thing you got to do for me. Like, I don't need you to like, I don't need you to like be kicked out of the school, whatever. Just first of all, leave me the hell alone. But also like do that and we're good, whatever. In order to do an informal process, both parties have to agree. So it took Britt 2 years. 2 years is crazy. 2 weeks to agree to the process. I remember like those entire 2 weeks, I was so like confused. I was like, what's taking so long?
Right.
I mean, we could do a formal process if you want. I just thought I was being nice.
Yeah.
And then around like this was like mid to end September. So then around like early to mid October, I started seeing her on campus a lot more than usual. I started like seeing her in places she never really was. I started like seeing her like right outside where I leave my class when she didn't have any classes, like stuff like that, where like it was kind of starting to get like, why are you always around where I am when you never were before?
Yeah, exactly. And then you start questioning everything, but you're like hyper aware.
Literally. So then I remember like, I don't know if it was like a mental health break or what was going on. To this day, everybody just says it was a mental health break for me, because even my therapist. But October 16th, to be exact, of 2023, I remember I was leaving my classroom, and I walked down the stairs and she's just sitting there. It was just her. She didn't have anybody with her. Everything was closed. It was just her sitting there. And I remember like walking out and calling my friend and being like, why the hell is she here? Like, she knows I finished my class right now. She has my schedule. So why is she here? And my friend was like, just leave. Like, it's going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Don't do anything. Don't say anything, whatever. I remember walking like out and coming back in and like having to like sit down, calm myself down. Somebody even come over to me and asked if I was okay. Like, it was pretty evident that something was going on. So she finally leaves. And then after she leaves for a few minutes, and I make sure she got like ahead of me, I finally left because I was like, all right, we can we're together now. And I went to a meeting, and this was like 2 hours later. I went to the library like every night for whatever reason, whether it was to study with my friends or whatever. And I go to the library and I stood on the first floor, and the first time ever, she's also right there on the first floor. And I'm like, again, why is she here again? Like, it just was the second thing. And I remember like sitting in front of like the door that you have to leave, and thinking to myself, like, today's the day I'm gonna say something. Like, I'm gonna say something to her. Was I supposed to? Absolutely not. But I was gonna do it.
You were pushed to the edge.
Literally, I was over it, because I was like, I can't keep seeing her. I can't keep doing this.
Crazy inside.
So I remember going up to her and I like tapped her shoulder, and she turned around. She noticed it was me, and she like almost kept walking. But my biggest fear was like, if she were to keep walking at that point, I didn't say what I had to say, that she would be able to say like, she just came up to me and touched me. Hell no. I'd rather I talk to her and like whatever than her be able to say that I touched her. That's a whole Yeah. So she starts walking just a little bit, and I tap her again, and this time she turns around and she actually stops. I'm shaking. Like, as soon as she turns around, I start shaking immediately, because like, oh wow, like I really just did this. Like, we're there. Like, I can't turn back now. And I remember just saying like, I really need you to leave me alone. Like, I really want to be left alone. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk about you. I don't want to like deal with any part of this. Like, I had said like, I'm going to drop the Title IX case. I'm going to like stop talking about you. Please just leave me alone. Like, I don't want
Right.
any part of this, okay? And I remember her just kind of like shaking her head and like agreeing with me and saying, okay. And she walked away. And I just like broke down
Right.
because like that was so like it was like I guess the adrenaline kept me talking, but the anxiety that came after she finally walked away of like, oh crap, like that no contact order said we were not supposed to be speaking. So the fact that we
Mhm.
had talked, I was like, oh crap, like if she reports me, like it's gonna be like I can get suspended, like I can get expelled, like whatever. Like I'm scared, whatever. And I just like remember being so like anxious about everything in that moment. But everybody that I talked to, like I talked to my grandma about it, I talked to my friends about it, everybody was like, you did what you had to do. You're clearly in survival mode. Just go home, go to bed, and do exactly what you said. Like drop the case, whatever. So I did. The next day, I went and I dropped the case, and the end of that week, she reported me,
Mm.
and I had to go through the conduct process at school. And I remember like the like final push that got me to report her to the police was that like I went to the like conduct meeting. I spoke to the conduct officer. She was like, we have to continue investigation, get the full totality of the situation, and we'll get back to you. And I was like, okay, because I didn't know what was going to happen. And she was like the one who made a decision, but if I didn't agree with the decision, I could appeal and do like a board decision where like multiple people make a decision based on just one. And I remember like she was like, I've made my decision if you want to come visit on Friday. And I was like, okay. So Friday comes along and I go and I visit her office. And it wasn't what the punishment was that made me want to report Brit. It was the reasoning for that punishment that made me want
Right.
to report Brit. And it was, they had said they wanted to suspend me, that it was as a result of the quote unquote frequency in which her and I were running into each other.
The frequency that
Yeah.
you had
And
literally nothing to do with.
exactly. So I was
The
like,
frequency of somebody stalking you, you mean? Oh,
exactly. That was my thing. And that's why I was so angry. And I remember like I was talking back and I don't usually, and the person who was with me, like my support person, she said that like I'm not someone who talks back. I'm not someone who's mean. Like I'm typically very understanding, but I was talking back and I was like, I told you that she's been following me. I told you that like I had no reason to talk to her. I wanted to be left alone. The whole reason I went up to her was to tell her I wanted to be left alone. So I'm confused. Um, and I remember them just saying like, well, like there's nothing that really we can say about that. Like they essentially, I think she said that she like felt like the frequency was increasing as a result of me walking up to her. And I was like, oh my God. Like I kind of like the psycho laugh came out because I was like, what? What?
yeah.
And to me, that was the school basically telling me that they don't give a shit. Like
Right.
they're not here to protect me at all. They're here to protect her.
Right.
And that was my cue to report her. And people, it gets twisted sometimes because even Britt has said that like that she felt like I was doing it for revenge for the fact that I almost got suspended. But it had nothing to do with the punishment. Like I would have taken that if they had a more valid reason than due to the frequency in which we're running into each other.
Right.
Like,
If it wasn't a valid reason and you weren't just gonna like sit down and roll over because of that.
exactly. I remember going to like I did even when I did like because I had finally got a restraining order against Britt. That's what had happened, how I reported it the first time. And in the middle of between when that had happened with the suspension and when our hearing was for the restraining order, we had the hearing for my conduct. Like they had to do like the like I said like I'm not accepting this. I'm appealing it. I want to go to the board, and we went to that. And Britt wasn't allowed to be there in person because again, like the whole distance requirement and everything. So she joined via Zoom. But I remember I was like, I don't want to be in the room when she speaks. I don't want to hear her voice. I don't want to like be around her. I would like to be excused when you're ready to talk to her. I don't want to deal with this. So they did. But I remember like a lot of what I was saying how like I'm planning on transferring schools. I'm planning on like, all these different things of like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want anything to do with her. Like, I don't know how more to make it clear that like this was clearly just a lapse in judgment for me. And like, I was just going through something and I didn't know how to like, process what was happening in a more healthier way. But I have no intentions of speaking to her ever again. And I didn't really know the reasoning. I just remember I think it was like a week or so later, I got an email saying that the board rendered their decision and that they had decided, I think it was like, I forgot what exactly it was called, deferred suspension. That's what it was called. And deferred suspension meant that like I wasn't really suspended. Like I could stay at the school, it wouldn't go on my permanent record, like anything like that. I just couldn't do like certain things. And I was like, that's fine with me.
Totally fine. Yeah.
Literally. Finally, I was like, I'm leaving the school. I can't do this. I can't. But I had to do the restraining order hearing. And I remember we went to court and like it was literally just me, my attorney, and my legal advocate. Britt had like Britt's parents, her roommate, her like friend, she had her ex-girlfriend, she had her ex-girlfriend's new girlfriend, she had like the whole like
The
defendant's
whole ass
room who
orchestra.
literally was just for Britt. And I was like, that's fucking insane. Like,
Which I
why do we
was,
need this many people?
yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday actually, and they were saying that the same thing happened to them. Like the defendant literally had like their entire squad, family, cousins, friends, second uncles, the whole fucking, like I said, orchestra. And she said, she just had like her mom maybe and a like attorney, period.
Yeah, that was me.
And yeah, which is, it's crazy and it's sad to think that like all these people are standing behind an abuser, but it seems to be how it happens. They
It
get the
is.
whole fucking orchestra and you get like a triangle.
Yeah, because at the same time, like, I wasn't gonna force my friends to come, or like, my family lives states away. Like, they didn't have the ability, the means to make it up here. And also, like, my friends were all like freshmen, sophomores in college. We couldn't really afford to take a day off from that to, like, come to me. So I wasn't gonna be like, oh, like, please, or anything like that. Like, I got it. I could deal with this myself. But just like, I remember even telling my attorney and my legal advocate, I'm like, she has everybody. Like, I'm nervous as hell because just because of how she has everybody. And all of them were like, at a certain point, all the other cases got done. Like, all the other cases the other attorneys had to do were done. So, like, yeah, she had other people, but my entire room was just attorneys. At a certain point, I had like my attorney, another attorney, the legal director for the place I go to, another one, the legal advocate, and they were all just there for me.
Right.
They stayed later because of me. Yeah, I was like, I have the power of people who have actual degrees and not whatever weird shit you got going on over there. And then we actually went in the courtroom and it was like an actual trial. Like we went to trial and I was terrified. Like the witness stand, not a fun place to be. And I ended up losing, which I think the sad part is the fact that like a lot of survivors expect that. Like a lot of us know like we're not really gonna win. Like there's like it's kind of like a expect the worst but hope for the best. Like I would have liked to win. I would have liked to have that restraining order on her, but like the fact that I didn't and I lost, I was like, oh, okay. Like I cried, obviously, but like
Of course.
I
Well, and it's
wasn't.
it's always a hope. Like you hope that this time when you go through the process, it'll be different, it'll be better. And so it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really necessarily make it easier, but it's just like, wow, fuck, this is just as disappointing as I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. So there was that, and then I remember going home and I got an email from like after the trial was over, I got an email from a school that I had applied to, and like I remember like being like, dude, if I open this email and it's what I don't need to see or I don't want to see, this could be my 13th reason today. Like, like I don't
You're
mean
like,
to
bro.
sound morbid, but like I cannot do this today. I remember opening it and I just saw like confetti pop out of the email. And it was like, congratulations, we are pleased to announce that you've been accepted into our spring 2024 class, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, within the week, I withdrew from that school, like from the school I was currently
Goodbye.
at, got the hell out of there. And when I got out of there, I had posted about Brit, like name dropped her, put a picture and everything, and I like
Oh
put
my
the
God.
screenshots of her admitting it on Instagram, and I like said the full story of what happened. And I remember just this like I remember posting it the day that I was leaving. It was a couple hours before I actually was planning on going, but I posted it the day I was leaving, and I remember just putting my phone in my pocket and like doing laps around the school because I was like the adrenaline was doing what it had to do. I was getting like anxious, all that. But I remember like I kept opening my phone, and every time I would open my phone, it would be another like, another comment, another share, another somebody being like, thank you for talking about this, thank you for like speaking on it for people who can't, like stuff like that. And I was just kind of like, wow, that's a lot. This is a lot to take in. Of course, like as a lot of us have experienced with every like good comment that comes like that, there were a few people being like,
God.
why would you post about this? Why would you put this on social media? Blah blah blah, or like something like that. And I remember just like taking it all in. I remember hearing through the grapevine too how Britt was reacting to it. That she had seen it. That like people had told her about it. That like um, she was upset about it. And I didn't give a single flying shit.
You're like, oh, you're upset that I'm outing you? You're upset that you got caught? Sorry.
Right? I
I
didn't know what to tell
am
you.
now traumatized because of you.
Literally. You want to pay for my therapy bill and then we can make this even? I don't know. Like, but I still kept posting about her from December on. And I got 3 cease and desist letters in the time from when I started talking about her until I stopped. But I always said, like, I'm going to stop talking about her when I want to stop talking about her.
Right.
I'm not going to let her legal threats or her financial ploys try to silence me, because when we went to court, which is the part I didn't mention, when we went to court, like before we went to trial, they tried to go back and forth of like, can we come to some type of an agreement? And the last offer that we got from Britt's side was that they would give me like $1,500, because I was asking her to give me money. So like the thing that gets twisted is that she makes it seem like I was the one who offered this, like I was the one who talked about it, but I had asked for the money. The reason I asked for it was because of the fact that I couldn't go to work because her apartment was right upstairs from my job. So I was like, give me my lost wages, because I can't go to my job because you're there.
Right. Which also, if I can say this, there is nothing wrong with asking for, I think it's punitive damages. Like there is nothing wrong, in my opinion, of asking for money when you have been traumatized. Like,
exactly.
Truthfully, money will not fix the situation. Money will not take away the abuse. Money will not make you not have PTSD. But what it can do is maybe help you afford therapy. Maybe it can help you afford a few Starbucks coffees that give you like 5 seconds of joy when you're suffering and you want to die.
Yes,
And
exactly.
So I don't see anything wrong with asking for money in cases. And
Yeah.
like, if I could have gotten money, I probably would have. And frankly, the fact that Brianna Chicken Fry didn't take $12 million, I'm like, girl, good for you. But I probably would have.
I definitely would have, not gonna lie. No, but like I had asked for money, but the thing that gets twisted is that I had asked for money, Britt had agreed to give me the money. But the part that Britt mentioned was that she wanted to have a gag order in place.
Oh, if she gave you money.
Yeah, if she gave me money. So she essentially wanted me to sign an NDA.
Right.
That I wouldn't talk about her in exchange for
$1,500 is not enough for an NDA, girl.
Thank you. I was like, hell no. That was my first thing, because I remember like being in the room with my attorneys, the multiple at this point, and all of us talking about it, because my actual attorney came in and told me that. And I had said, they were like, it's up to you. It's entirely up to you. If you want to do that, do it. If not, that's too cool too. And she was like, we don't have to say yes. If you want to go to trial, we could do that. And I was like, it's important to me to talk about her. Like, it's important to me to say what I have to say, to not feel like I can't say something, to not feel like, I can be breaking some type of an order, some type of anything because I'm speaking on her. Like, do I spend every single day of my life now speaking about her? No. But like situations like this where like I'm on a podcast or my own podcast or I'm talking about it on TikTok or whatever the case is, I don't want to get some type of email or legal ramification because I'm talking about it. Not happening. So I was like, first of all, $1,500 is not enough for that. And second of all, I'm not going to let her try to silence me. So no, I'm not doing that. And that's how we went to court. So from when I posted about her until like July, I got 3 cease and desist letters, because she was still trying. She was still trying to get me to stop talking about her. It didn't work out for her. It didn't. It really didn't. And then finally in July, I started dating somebody else. And I was like, I don't really want to talk about her anymore. Right. And I spent like a really long time not speaking about her at all. Like I talked about her to my ex, of course, just because like, you talk about your past with your currents. But like otherwise, like I wasn't posting about her. I really wasn't like whatever. And now I've started like sort of getting back to it. And my thing was always like, I don't want anybody to look at my story and like feel like discouraged by any part of it. And I've always been very big on advocacy. My advocacy is something that's very important to me, very important to like who I am as a person. And so like no one was going to take that away from me, especially not her. So for her to like from the gag order to the cease and desist letters, I still spoke about her even after she sent me 2 cease and desist letters.
Which I'm curious. Well, I have 2 things. My first thought is, when you've been abused and been in an unhealthy, not toxic, sorry, let's call it what it is, just an abusive relationship for so long, because you are not thinking straight. You can't comprehend the pain that's being inflicted on you. You're confused, you're frustrated. And so like, once you're out of that, like you're getting your voice back. Like speaking about it is so important, no matter what capacity it's in, whether it's on a podcast, to your friend, to your therapist, to your journal. And so I think it's so incredible that you kept talking about it and you were like, this is on my terms now. Like you took away my voice for so long and now I'm getting it back. And like, you have no choice but to listen to it. And if I don't want to talk about it, then I won't. But if I want to, I will. And there's nothing you can do about it. So I just would like to commend you on that. Number 2. So if you get a cease and desist letter, what happens next? Do you like contact an
So
attorney?
essentially,
Or do
like,
you
yeah,
like
so like after the first two, I was kind of like, all right, like I'm gonna ignore it. But the last one, I was kind of
right?
like, she had said that like she was gonna take all possible legal action, including criminal charges, and I was like, the fuck I look like walking around with criminal charges. So I finally did contact another attorney because my attorney doesn't deal with like tort liability stuff, like she doesn't deal with those type of course cases.
Mhm.
So I contacted an attorney and I remember like talking to him and it was really interesting because I was talking to him and I was telling him the situation and like we did a free consultation, of course. And I'm telling him what happened and whatever. And he's, taking my information. I remember him asking me like, "Do you know who her attorney is?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I told him the name. And I remember like his vibe just switched immediately and
Oh
he
gosh.
just kind of like chuckled. And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "If she tries to sue you, send me that paperwork and I'll represent you. I love arguing with that woman." I was
Oh my
gagged.
gosh.
Like I couldn't have been more. He was like, she's a bully, and I love arguing with her. So
Oh,
if she tries to sue you, because she doesn't have a fucking case, you can come to me and I'll represent you. And I was like,
oh, that's amazing.
thank you. So so I remember just like wanting to know, like, first of all, is there validity to her claims? Second of all, what do I need to do? And third of all, what does she mean when she says like legal action, all that?
Right.
And the attorney had essentially said no, like that um technically there is validity to her claims essentially because I am posting about her. However, in order for her to prove like any type of anything, she had to prove that what I'm talking about is a lie. That what I'm
Right.
saying about her on social media is a lie. And considering the fact that she's admitted to it multiple times, it would be very, very hard for her to do that. So no, she doesn't really have much of a claim. The reason she keeps sending you cease and desist instead of actually just doing it is because she knows she doesn't have a
That
case.
there's nothing. Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And
So
then
I'm
she was,
good.
yeah, he was like, if she does try to sue you because it's absolute fucking bullshit, send me the forms and I'll represent you because
Which
I love arguing with her attorney. And I was like, oh,
which this is such a good reminder. Like just because you see, okay, I'm not an attorney, put that out there, but
right,
just because you get a cease and desist letter, just because you get some scary legal email that like seems really
mm-hmm,
important from an important person, doesn't necessarily mean anything. And that's why it's
exactly,
important to double check, go to a free consultation. Google's a good resource, probably not the best,
yeah,
but
no,
don't
yeah,
be so
literally,
intimidated by that.
because I think that's what they try to do, especially when there's a power dynamic and like your abuser is like has more money than you or is like rich or like has some type of like power over you. That's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to use that and try to do again one step ahead of you all the time. And
Which
that's what
is
she was
like
trying
the exact tactics that they used in your relationship to gain power over you, they're going to do it afterwards too.
to do.
Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't stop. They don't all of a sudden be like, oh, never
Yeah.
mind, no more abuse. No, it continues. They use that power dynamic to keep you in this horrible cycle and to try to get you to stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I know that even like there's always so much more to the story. Like we get pieces, but it's not all of it.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people can really relate to what you've been through. And it's like we say, like every experience is different, but none of them are unique. Like abuse in itself, like so many people experience it. And so if somebody's listening right now who is actively in an abusive relationship, they're listening to you and they're like, "Ooh, girl, that might be me." Like, oh shit. What advice would you give to somebody who is currently in an abusive relationship or in a relationship with their assailant?
The biggest thing I tell people whenever I get that question is to know that it doesn't get better. And what I mean by that, because people always say, like, it gets better, like, you're going to be fine, whatever. What I mean by that is, like, when you're actively in the situation, you're actively dating somebody who's abusing you. One of the biggest thoughts, at least that I have, was like, she's going to change. She's not going to do this again. It's not going to happen. Like, she said she was sorry. She didn't mean it, etc. And then she did it again. And then she did it again. And then something else happened after that. And then something else happened after that. And I always told myself, like, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. No, it's not.
Right.
And I think that's something that a lot of, survivors try to say is like, they're going to change. Like, he just like, he's going through something. He's dealing with something. He didn't know how else to express his feelings. It's going to be fine. Maybe tomorrow will be better. No, it won't. Like, once an abuser, always an abuser. And if they put their hands on you once, they're going to put their hands on you again. And like, that's probably my biggest thing to tell people is like, after the first time, get out. And of course it's easier said than done. I'm not saying like people who don't get out the first time are any less than or anything like that, because not at all. But what I'm saying is like, after that, like grapple with that fact, like sit with that for a
Mm.
minute and think to yourself, like, no, yeah, this is in fact what I think it is. Like after the first time, that is an abuser. Like
Yeah.
it's not an excuse. There's no excuse for putting your hands on somebody. It doesn't matter what the reason
Mm.
was. So don't let them have an excuse, because it's just going to continue to get worse if you make that excuse the first time.
That is so well said. It's like, believe them
Try.
when they show you who they are. Like, believe them when they put a hand on you, because they'll do
Yeah.
it again.
Yeah.
So obviously this abusive woman that you dated was a woman. This abusive woman was a woman. Hello.
I love your grammar today.
Thank you. Yep, that's me, college graduate. Here I am. Okay, so you mentioned that this previous partner who was abusive was a woman, and I think there's a lot of sort of misconceptions about, you know, women dating women, and you particularly mentioned one of them was that you didn't really think that abuse necessarily occurred with women on women relationships.
Yeah.
So what unique challenges do you think that members of the LGBTQ plus community face when it comes to seeking justice for sexual assault?
I think that's the first one, is that like so many of us don't really understand that like that's possible. And not only when you're in the relationship, it's like if I myself as a member of the LGBTQ community can't grasp the idea that I might have been abused by someone of the same sex, how can I expect somebody who's heterosexual to grasp that idea? And so many people who are heterosexual kind of look at you, or genuinely will say something along the lines of like how, and expect you to like go into detail as to like exactly how I could have been sexually assaulted by a woman, because they've never heard of that before. And I always tell, like, I don't even respond anymore. Like my number one response is always like, where there's a will, there's a way. Like if they want to assault you, it doesn't matter what gender they are, they're gonna do it. So
Right.
it doesn't matter. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is just kind of lack of knowledge and lack of understanding. And then I also think that like policy wise, there's so many different things that like for example with the restraining order, part of getting a restraining order is that you have to prove there was some type of a romantic relationship between the two of you. Like you can't just get it on someone who's a friend or someone whatever. It has to be proven that you guys were together. So yeah, so if I'm saying like we're dating and she were to say no we didn't, I would have to prove that two women are dating, which is even harder because again it's two women. Whereas like with a man and a woman, like I could show a picture of the two of us hugging, and the judge would be like, oh yeah, like yeah, like so it's like little things like that, or like in like Title IX, for example, it only recently with Biden's Title IX plan, I think it's called, I don't know what he exactly called it, but he did change the Title IX process where he did explicitly include rights for and like specific protections for members of the LGBTQ community. Where prior to that, which this literally happened this year, so 2024, right. Prior to now, we did not have that. Like we did not have those protections. We still had to like it was up to the school. The school could have said like, we're not going to deal with it because it's a same-sex couple. Whereas now, because of Biden, they can't do that. A same-sex couple has to be treated the same way. So I think a lot of policies, like little parts of things that people don't realize but actually really affect somebody, is part of what really affects us. And I just think like there's a lot of misconceptions as well of like, you know, power. I think one thing I got too was like people were also just like confused because they always assume like, especially when it's abuse and not like assault. And when I say that, I mean like not sexual assault and sexual abuse, or not just like, no. I don't like the word just, because I think whenever you say
right.
it's like
it diminishes.
Exactly. Yeah. But assault kind of one event, whereas abuse multiple. And yeah. And I think something that I've gotten a lot is people are genuinely like not even like trying to misunderstand it or trying to like be unknowledgeable. They genuinely can't process like the strength, you know, like they can't understand that like a woman could abuse you in like a physical way, like could punch you across the face and still hurt you, and it's not a man. So I think stuff like that, where it's like little bits and pieces of like both society and the systems that are in place that are just leaned against us, that makes it incredibly hard for us and for anybody else to understand what's going on.
Any like standard heterosexual situation where someone's abused and you go to report it, like that's a challenge. Like it's hard enough to get people to believe you, and then on top of it you're trying to show them that a woman is abusive, a woman can be abusive. And yeah. I'm totally guilty of it too. Like the majority of the language that I use on social media is all talking about men and like men abusing women or men abusing other men. And it's because the
Mm-hmm.
majority of abusers are men, but the majority is not all. And I think that that is something that we forget a lot of the time. So you briefly mentioned Title IX and struggles and with that in the past, and how now with Biden's sort of new Title IX rules, things have shifted a bit. Are there any other legislative or policy changes that you believe would improve the protection and support for LGBTQ plus survivors?
I think our first mistake was who we just elected into office. Um,
I knew this was coming.
it's just because of the fact that like, there's so many like things on social media where like, you'll see like, oh, he's against this or he's against that, whatever. And then you'll see his supporters say like, he's never said that, or like, that's not true, or like, whatever. And there's certain things of like, not even just for domestic violence, sexual assault, but it's just like, there's certain things just that he's just said about like the LGBTQ community as a whole that like is like telling you enough how he feels, how much he cares, like how much of the policy changes that we need and we could use and could be helpful to us that he's not going to bat an eye at. Because if he could say those horrible things about us, what makes me or anybody think that he's going to do anything good for us? Like that's not something that I even freaking process or start to believe. So I think that like that's not putting him in office would have been great. But I think one of the biggest things that like at least like my county does it, and I don't necessarily think this is like a legislative thing, but I do think that more support needs to be in place for LGBTQ members who've also been assaulted or abused, because of the fact that I think like a lot of things that are put on social media are targeted towards the heterosexual relationships. So they're targeted towards like, like those pictures that you see of like the really angry tall man standing and like screaming, and it's like a little like timid girl in the back. And it's like you see stuff like that on social media, and then you see like resources, or you see like ways to escape, or you see stuff like that that are targeted towards a heterosexual relationship. So I think like if there was more supports and there was more like, examples of said things happening, and like I don't want to say more members speaking of their experience, because it shouldn't be on the survivor to speak about things. It should be, up to all of us to just, educate ourselves. But I think if we made it more, I don't know what word exactly, because I don't want to say normal, but I think if we made it more like,
I think like weaving it into our language.
yeah, like
because like even the Title IX changes. I mean, the new Title IX rules. I'm not an expert on them, but a lot of them were like a language shift.
yeah,
And if we
exactly.
just make it a more, I mean, even
Inclusive.
inclusive. Like I guess inclusive is one of the words that could be used to
Yeah, I
make
think
it.
the more that like we as the survivors do speak on it, although it's not our responsibility, so I would never tell anybody to do so. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But I think the more that we do, we make it more, I guess, normalized that it's possible for, you know, people in same-sex relationships to have had these experiences. Because a lot of my friends are survivors, and I've dated multiple women, and not a single woman who I've dated has not had a story of domestic violence, sexual assault by another woman. And of course, I don't like, go on and air their own personal stories out, but
Right.
I continue to see more and more that like it is a lot more prevalent than you might think or you might assume if you're not a part of a community, if you're not like, exposed to that.
Absolutely. And when it comes to laws, the tedious part about laws is the language.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't have something that talks about, women relationships or like male and male relationships or anything in that realm, then it's going to screw with the actual legal proceedings because it's
Yeah.
not written into laws. Speaking of laws, you've gone through several different legal routes to pursue justice, whether it was through the Title IX process with your school, police reporting, protective orders. Which of these processes was the least of what you expected? And I say that with this sort of thought of like thinking about what it was like to go through the court process, what I thought about it before, like what you see in the movies and the drama and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So which of these processes was the least of what you expected?
You start to get to a point where you go into things hoping for the best but expecting the worst. So like to me it was kind of like everything kind of became exactly what I thought it was going to be. I would say that like the Title IX process was a lot more like thorough than the restraining orders and stuff like that, due to the fact that like it took a lot more time. So the Title IX started in November of 2023 and then officially ended in August of 2024. Whereas the restraining order was just started November 1st, I think, of 2023 and ended on the 16th. Like, we were done within 2 weeks. So they had time to sit there and, you know, read every single one of our text messages between each other. They had time to, like, you know, talk to this one and that one and this one and that one and like, you know, get a more generalized idea of what happened. And they still didn't have everything because there were so many witnesses who said, like, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, like, be a part of the situation whatsoever. So, like, you really didn't get the full story even then. So I think, like, walking into that was definitely different than what I thought it was. And how it, like, kind of played out was a little bit different than what I thought it would be too. Just due to the fact that, like, Britt and I were there for the Title IX process, but, you know, we only really spoke for opening and closing statements and then for questioning. And in those moments, like, we didn't really talk to each other. We didn't really, like, have any type of communication. And they were asking me, like, 1,000,001 questions. They didn't ask her pretty much anything. As the days were going on, and as I've also, like, been a little bit more pulled away from the situation, I even realized in that process how much her power dynamic was doing it, how much that was doing for her. Especially because, like, she had hired an attorney. She had, like, had two, as a matter of fact. Her support person was another attorney. Or, like, it was, like, this whole thing that, like, she was able, like, her attorney was able to go through every single bit of evidence and, like, be like, well, in B35, it says blah, 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 blah. Whereas my attorney was a free freaking legal attorney that I got from, like, one of the women's resource centers near us. Because of the fact that, like, not everybody has, like, $1,500 to just, like, throw on something like that. Yeah. So I think that was definitely totally what I expected. The outcome, though, was exactly what I thought it was going to be. They literally victimized the hell out of Britt and made me look like a horrible human being and said that, like, I was stalking her and that I've been harassing her and this and the third with, like, what I post about her on social media. And they said that she was innocent. She didn't, you know, assault me. They said in the, like, Title IX thing, like, in the, like, big form they gave me at the end of it, that essentially they didn't believe I was sexually assaulted because I never said no.
Oh.
And I was like,
in the 1800s.
Right. I was like, okay, cool. So, did you hear me say yes? Oh, okay. Good talk.
Wait, you didn't.
So, you know, whatever. So I was kind of like, I wasn't surprised at all. It was, of course, hurtful because, again, you never really want to, like, read those things. You never want to really be a part of that. But then, like I said, we go into it knowing that that's probably what's going to happen because that's the society in which we live in. So, and I the whole time I was like, I'm going to lose. I know I'm going to lose. But I lost, and although I lost, I still made Britt confront every single thing she did. I still made her spend how many dollars on attorneys and on this and on that because of what she did to me. I still made her confront all of her actions. I still made her have to walk around and be more conscious and be more aware of the way she carries herself, the way she talks to people, the way she touches people, the way she is in her future relationship, whatever. That personally, it was worth it.
Yeah. Another thing, well said. There are a lot of verdicts that will never come back as guilty in abusive cases or in abuse cases, sexual assault cases, but it doesn't mean that you didn't make them stop and think twice. And it's not, like you were saying, it's not on the survivor to try and fix the problem, fix the perpetrator, but you're calling someone out for their shit. You're saying this isn't okay. And whether they know what they did or they're confused and think they didn't do anything, it's still a moment of, like, I hope that you fucking think twice, because that time that you had to spend all this money on attorneys, or that time where you had to spend a week in court, or that time where you had to read through a scary thing and think, oh shit, I could be removed from school because of this.
Yeah.
That is what's important. Why do you think, this is, like, just kind of out there, but why do you think we victimize perpetrators so much?
I think society is very unaccepting, and we want so much to say that, like, oh, it was just a mistake. Like, we don't want to believe that those kind, nice people that, like, you know, hang out with us, like, we're playing, you know, in her case, she was a referee for soccer. She played soccer. She's a future physical therapist. Like, she's doing all these, like, really good person, quote unquote, things that, like, to look at that person and say, and she's also an abuser, is something that society does not want to do. And it's not even just for her, it's in general. Like, people do not want to look at these kind, quote unquote, people and face the music of the fact that, like, they're actually horrible human beings. And I think people are also stuck in their ways and want everything to be in a box. And so, like, If it doesn't fit their box, it's not true. It didn't happen. If,
Right.
their experience with this person was nothing like that, it didn't happen. And that's why, like, a lot of times, like, I'll talk about somebody or I'll talk to somebody and I'll always say, like, they don't seem like the type, but I'll never say that they would never do that, or like I know that they can't do that, because you never know. Like, I could
Right.
have a really great best friend, and like at this point I'm not friends with anybody who I believe would ever do that, because why would I? But at the same time, if somebody were to tell me, like, your friend did XYZ, okay, I would definitely, like, I would look twice. I would think twice. I would look into that. I would, do what I need to do to, like, do justice for the victim, and not victim, survivor, whatever word people want to use. Do justice for that person, and understand that, like, although my experience with this person might have been great, and this person is one of my really good friends, at the same time they could have also had a really horrible experience with another person and done these horrible things. Two things can be true at once.
Yeah, you don't know what somebody does behind closed doors. You don't know what
Mm-hmm.
somebody does when they're in a relationship and or sexually or anything. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. Like you were saying, like we don't want to believe that people can do bad things, because if we acknowledge that people can do bad things and good people can actually be really scary and do really fucked up shit, then it means that it could happen to us.
Yeah.
And we hate we hate to admit
Hate to
that
see
that
it.
could happen to
Mm-hmm.
us too. What is one thing you think people don't say enough when it comes to sexual assault and abusive relationships?
I think there's this, like, idea that when you go through something like this, you need to be thinking about reporting it. And you need to be thinking about, where am I going to go? Who am I going to talk to? What police station? Who do, like, all these things. And I think it's okay to be a human being and just be. Especially after a situation like that, where, like, you don't have to report it. And I've had several, like, guy friends of mine especially who will come to me and they'll tell me, like, hey, like, my girlfriend or one of my, like, female friends had a situation and I don't know how to help her. Like, I think she should report it, but I don't know how to get her to do it. And I always tell them, like, it's not up to you. If they don't want to report it, they don't have to. Like, I think we've also done that in a situation where we've put survivors or victims in a mentality that, like, if something like this happens to me, I have to go report it. I have to go get a rape kit. I have to go to I have to do all these things. You don't have to do anything. There's no version of have to. Like, in this, like, after something like that happens, the one thing that you, like, need to do is start to get that control back. That control that was taken away from you, that power that was taken away from you, you have to get that back. And a part of that is doing whatever you want to do. If what you want to do because you think it's the best decision for you is to go report them, go report them. If what you want to do is to go crawl up in a ball and sit in your room for 4 to 5 days, go do that. Like, whatever it is that you need to do to get and feel better in this moment is exactly what you should do. There's no, like cookie cutter type of a sexual assault survivor needs to do this. No. And I don't think we, like, talk about that enough, just because I think there's, like, the idea is that we want to, start putting those people behind bars. We want to, like, start getting justice. We want to start that conversation. That's very valid. That's very true. But some people are just not ready to do that, and they might never be ready to do that. They might never want to talk about it. They might never want to deal with it. They might never want to confront it in that way. And that is so also okay.
Absolutely. It's okay to just sit and be and heal. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
I think, like, especially when it comes to, like, domestic violence relationships, or, like, being in a relationship with your assailant, you never really realize how bad it is or how bad it was until you try dating somebody else. And
You mean like
I
a
think,
healthy person? Like when
yeah,
you're dating somebody else or just anybody? Okay.
ideally a healthy person, but, because, like, that's something that I've just recently started doing. Like, I recently started, like, getting back into the dating pool after Brit, and I dated somebody from July until September, and, like, that hit the fucking gutter really quickly. But I also did spend a lot of time. There was a lot of parts of my relationship with this person where I was like, wait, like, Britt would have fucking broke up with me for this. What is this? Like, or, like, that would have happened in my past. I'm not supposed to cry every day? Wait a minute. Hold on. Rewind. And then especially now, like, this person and I aren't even, like, starting. We haven't even gotten our first date yet, but, like, we talk pretty much every day. And even, like, this talking stage, like, comparing this talking stage to, like, my talking stage with Britt,
Mhm.
good lord. And, like, in general, like, not even just with her, but with relationships I've been in the past, of, like, I'll go to sleep and, like, I'll wake up with a pit of anxiety because I forgot to tell her that I was going to go to bed. And she'll wake up, like, she'll respond to me when I finally, like, say, like, oh, I'm awake, and she'll be like, okay, like, Congrats, you got
Sounds
some sleep.
good.
I'm proud of you. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, we're not gonna have an argument. What is this? Like stuff like that, where you don't really process just how bad it is until you start like dating and talking to other people that are like genuinely in it, like that are genuinely good people and genuinely healthy
Right.
people. That you're like, hold on, rewind,
Mm.
ding ding ding, like,
You have to rewire your brain. Like things
yeah,
get, when you're in an unhealthy, abusive relationship,
mm-hmm.
the way that the good things and good like practices that you have for a relationship, those can leave so quickly, so quickly in an unhealthy relationship. But unlearning those bad things
Oh, yep,
takes like double, triple the time.
mm-hmm.
And it's literally like you've been traumatized, like you have a trauma response to these things. And so being in a healthy relationship, not only is it kind of confusing again, but also I think it can almost drive you towards wanting that conflict and
Yeah.
wanting the abuse.
Well,
Because
because like I think they talk about it like a lot about how like abusive relationships release the same drug and like the same like thing, whatever it's called, hormone, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
in your brain that like drugs release.
yeah.
And so
Well, it's
like you
because
get addicted to it.
right. You have these big, in an abusive, unhealthy relationship, you have really big highs and really low lows. So when
Mm-hmm.
you go from the low to the high, it is such a, I don't want to call it a better feeling, but I would call it a more intense feeling than when you're in a healthy relationship and you go from like middle to high. Like
Mm-hmm.
that difference is so much smaller. And so it's like, oh, that's nice. Like I'm in a healthy relationship. That's nice. But the abusive ones, the highs are so high and the lows are so low, and you're always chasing that high.
Yeah.
And so it's so confusing once you're back in the healthy relationship.
Yeah. And I was literally just talking about that the other day where I was saying how like you like there's certain parts of relationships that like you never realize are just not supposed to happen. And I think that's one of the things that like I learned that like to some people it sounds like yeah, it's just fucking common sense. But like but like to people who have been like continuously in yeah, that was right. I used that correctly. Like continuously in like abusive relationships or just like horrible ones, whether they were even if they weren't abusive, they were just like weird or like, you know, cheaters, whatever. Like
Mhm.
a situation like that where like so many people are like, wait, that's actually hold on, like that happened to me like even like in like the talking stage where I'm just, like I'm so used to like chaos and like not
Mhm.
arguing but like, you know, bickering or like just like that like constant, you know, anxiety even when you're in a
Stress.
talking
Yeah.
stage with somebody where it's like I remember like I like was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago, not a week ago, it was like back in late October. It's been a while. Clearly, I don't know what date it is. I was talking to like end of October, and like we knew each other for like a week, and we were already like arguing. And to me, it was like okay,
That's
like and
normal.
then that's normal.
Yeah.
But then like I started talking to the person I'm talking to now, and I'm like, we haven't even like so much as started. Like we haven't even like I just like I'll
Mhm.
say something and I'll like not expect it to be an argument, but like it would have been with somebody else. And she'll just be like, "Oh, okay, that's cool."
Mhm. Which it, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And like you
Like if
should
you're
be with
like,
somebody who doesn't even give you the opportunity to create bullshit, toxic, unhealthy anything. Like they don't even they like you try to pick a fight and they're just like, "Hey, what's going on? Do you want to talk about this?"
that's also
Like
what it's
shut
like
it
when you date
down.
older people.
Thank you so much for doing this collab and being here and being patient while trying to get you on the pod.
Guys,
Um,
it literally took a year.
I'm so sorry. It literally took a year, but here we are. You know, all's well that ends well.
Yeah,
Good
right.
things take time. So, yes, thank you so much for doing this collab. If you guys liked what you heard today, don't worry because we also did an entire episode on Angelique's podcast. Once again, that will be linked below. It's called Let's Talk About It. And that was episode 4. Also, Angelique is an active TikTok girly. So
I
you'll get to
am.
see her a lot on there. That'll also be linked down below. She posts like multiple times a day. And something that I really like about your TikToks, and I mean, I can't remember if I originally found you on TikTok or if it was Instagram, but you're just
Instagram, I
very
think.
raw,
Yeah.
you're very honest, and you do a lot of story times. And I think that you know you had said earlier that it's not on the survivor to share their story and all of that, but I think that you're kind of a voice for a lot of people who feel like they
Mm-hmm.
can't talk about it. And so you're a voice for them as well as somebody that people can relate to, which is unfortunate because
Yeah,
it's all
it's like
this.
interesting because especially now, like a lot of my story times are along the lines of like I did one when it was a year from the day that you know Britt and I went to court. he was talking about all the things that have happened within the last year from November 15th, 2023 to November 15th, 2024. And then I just did one a couple days ago of like all the things that happened in the past like full year and like just my reflections on the relationship for how the fact that I exposed her on social media on December 4th, it was just December 4th. So I was talking about like kind of how I felt in that moment and how I feel now about like posting about her, stuff like that. And I get one of the coolest parts of being someone who's been on social media for so long and someone who's been so public is that like I have some followers who have followed me since I've started posting about my first boyfriend back in 2020, and then we're there for him, and we're there for Britt, and we're there for the one after her and stuff like that, who are now like commenting, or they'll text me or they're whatever, and they'll be like, I just been watching your growth in the last like year and a half, and I just like I'm so proud of you. And like it's also nice because I never talk like I never really like say like I do this because I want to be somebody who people look up to, like I want to be someone that people can like turn to, whatever. It's just something that people have started saying to me, and that's what I really like start to like like solidifies my factor, like how I stand and how I feel about why I post what I post about, because I've never done it with like the intentions of like trying to hurt anybody, whether it be Brit or the other ones. It was always like because I just wanted to share my story. And hearing people come to me now and be like, not only seeing what you did in terms of like exposing her, but seeing where you are now encourages me that like I can do it too. Like I'm gonna be okay. Things are gonna be fine. Like we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it out of this. And I'm like, yes, girl. Yes, man.
Yes.
It's like a very full circle moment for me now to see like all the people who are like, I'm so proud of you, and I've been here for like so long, and like just seeing you glow and grow, and I'm like, stop.
Well, keep on doing what you're doing. Lauren and I admire your podcast and your willingness to say all this to others, even if it's not coming from a place of like wanting to necessarily be the one that people look up to. People do. People admire you. People look up to you. And people fucking love you. Literally strangers on the internet, which is really cool.
I know,
we have
right?
access to that these days. So keep on doing what you're doing. If you like this episode, have any questions, have an episode idea, send us an email at whattheydon'tsay@gmail.com. We love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you on the flip side, and cheers.
Cheers.